The main driver was the fact that we were going through museums accreditation, but because of that, it didn't mean that we were looking at a few questions that we had to answer. And those questions were around the governance of the Civic Society, but there were also issues of succession planning and also financial planning, and those latter two very much came out of the accreditation we'd been through 5 years before, and I must admit we hadn't done a lot around those two issues then, so it's something that was very much in our mind that we needed to do. The fact that we were able to go through some of this process with somebody else was very, very beneficial to us. The process was, first of all, there was a collection of our documentation, so we sent all that off to the consultant. And then there was a series of meetings then done over the phone with members of the board, but then also people, interested members of the public in Montgomery itself. So talking to the town council, at the time there was a Visit Montgomery kind of tourism initiative going as well. There were two reports. One was very much focused on the governance and the governance documentation. So that produced one report, and that went into some detail about what we need to do, which bits were missing, which areas of the constitution needed updating, because I'm sure this is similar in other kind of civic societies and so on. But the kind of documentation that we had is quite old and needed refreshing. So there were some good recommendations in there. I think the biggest one was that certainly that we should shift over to incorporated charity. Second paper then was very much focused on the succession planning that we were advised to carry out. Again, a lot of the people involved in the Old Bell Museum have been involved for a number of years. The other interesting thing that was pointed out was that we needed to go back to the Charities Commission and look at our charitable objects as well, because as a civic society, our main business is actually running the Old Bell Museum in the town, and that wasn't necessarily reflected in our charitable objects. We were able, with a grant from the Federation of Museums in Wales, set up a separate consultancy which took some of the recommendations out of the original documentation, and we worked with the consultant very much to sort of draw up the technical side of the documentation, because that's something that we realised that we needed help with, but then also a kind of roadmap about how we could go ahead with going for incorporated charity status as well. So that was a kind of follow-up project. The fact that we're changing our charitable objects allowed us to sort of step back and think very sort of freshly about what we do as a civic society, and what the important things are, and how that should be kind of expressed. In terms of the going forward as a incorporated charity, I think that the first thing that was very useful to us was to see that it was a substantial piece of work that we would have to do to make that change, really, and it was great to have the kind of roadmap there. One of the things that we did have a little bit of difficulty in is really to have got the buy-in of every single member of the board, because it was, it was very difficult to get everybody involved. They were all involved in the initial interviews, but getting people involved in what to do with the outcomes has been more challenging, really. We had a particular issue which may be common to other museums, in that we put our governance documentation together a number of years ago. So it's great to have a really fresh look about what you're doing, and so on. A fresh look at your aims and objectives, and also a fresh look about how you manage the people who are involved in your organization as well. So I think it allowed us to do all those things.